Okay, so this is the first question in the mock. So just pause the video and read the question. I'll directly start from the solution to this problem. So you have to determine if two numbers are twin primes or not. So what are twin primes? So 5 and 7, for example, are twin primes, meaning both are primes, both the numbers are primes, and the difference between them is 2. The absolute value of the difference between them is 2. Okay, so what do we need to do then? The first thing that we need to do is we need to check if a given number is prime or not. Okay, so it's actually useful to write a function called is prime for that, right? So is underscore prime. So if you pass an argument n, then this will return true if it is a prime, and if not, it will return false. So this is something that you must have by now done several times. So if n is equal to 1, we can just get rid of that. So let it return false. Now we are looking at all integers greater than or equal to 2. So what do? We look for the potential factors of n, right? So for f in range 2 comma n. Okay, so the range will be starting from 2 all the way till n minus 1. Okay, so the second argument minus 1 is where the range will end, the sequence will end, right? So this is the sequence. What is the sequence? This is 2 comma 3 dot 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 till n minus 1. So if any one of these numbers, if it divides, when it divides n, if it gives remainder 0, that means n cannot be a prime, so you have to return false. Okay, it's a composite number. Why? Because a prime number is one which is divisible only by 1 and the number itself. So if you manage to find a factor that is different from 1 and n, that means it's a composite number, so you have to return false. If not, you come outside the loop and you return true. Okay, so this is the is prime function. So once we have is prime, what do? We can go ahead and complete twin primes. So twin primes is what? First we check if p and q are primes or not. So if is prime of p and is prime of q. Okay, what will this do? If p is a prime, this will evaluate to true. This function will return true, and this entire expression here, right? This function call, this will be replaced with true, right? So this will evaluate to true, or the function call will evaluate to true. Likewise, if q is also a prime, the function call is prime of q will evaluate to true again. Okay, so if both p and q are prime, then you can enter the if block. You can ask one more question. So the difference between them, the absolute value of the difference, which is abs of p minus q, that should be 2, right? If that is 2, then you can return true, right? If the absolute value is not 2, what should you do? You have to return, else if it is not 2, you have to return false. Okay, this is for the case where you are dealing with two primes p and q. If one of them is not a prime, then you will exit the if, you will not even enter the if block. So once you come outside, you have to return false. Okay, you have to return false. Now let's first run this and see. Okay, 5 out of 5 private tests have passed. So that's an indication that the code is correct. Now let's look at few small changes here. Now instead of having an if else block like this, what we can directly do is return absolute of p minus q. Just pause the video for a moment and think why this works, right? So if absolute of p minus q is, sorry, not this, this should be double equal to 2. Okay, I stand corrected there. So this is what? This is a boolean expression. So this is checking if the absolute value of p minus q, whether it is 2 or not. Okay, if it is equal to 2, then this will evaluate to true. If it is not equal to 2, it will evaluate to false. So you don't actually need this if else portion and do a separate check, right? So you can just do this and it will work. Let's once again notice how much simpler the solution has become, more compact. So let's see if this works. Okay, this is also a correct solution. Now let's go back. So we could also argue in another way. See, this is prime of p, right? So this testing whether a number is prime is actually a much harder or much more complicated thing than checking if two numbers differ by 2 or not. Okay, so what we can do is, instead of doing the primality check first, we can actually check if absolute value of p minus q is doubly equal to 2 or not. Okay, so first I check that. Only if the difference is 2, is there any sense in talking about twin primes, right? So first I check if absolute value of p minus q is doubly equal to 2. That's a very simple check. So here, what can I return? I can return is prime of p and is prime of q. Okay, if absolute value is, if the difference between them, the absolute value of the difference is not equal to 2, I have to just return false. Okay, now let's once again look at this. What is it saying? What is this piece of code saying? It is first checking if abs of p minus q is double equal to 2. If it is double equal to 2, then I have some more business to do. If not, I can return false. Okay, now if it is double equal to 2, it comes inside and checks if p is a prime and q is a prime, whether p is a prime and q is a prime. If both are primes, then yes, true and true will evaluate true. If even one of them is not a prime, then it will be either true or true and false, that will evaluate to false, or it might be false and true, so that will also evaluate to false. Okay, so let's run this and see what we get. Okay, so this is also correct. Now you can simplify this even further in this manner, right? So what you can do is, you can return this expression absolute value of p minus q double equal to 2. This is the first part. Okay, this is one expression, one boolean expression. This will either be true or false. This should hold, and p should be prime, right? So is prime of p. Okay, so what are we saying here? We could add this double equal to true, but it is not necessary, right? We can just leave it as is prime of p. If it is prime, it will evaluate to true. If not, it will evaluate to false. Okay, p should be prime and q should be prime. Okay, notice how we have simplified it further, and this is a one liner now. So let's see if this works. Okay, so that also works. Okay, that's like a compressed solution of this particular problem. Okay, so now during the exam, let's say what happens is you forget this, or you are not able to recall the app's built-in function in Python. So what will you do? Okay, what you can do is you must immediately realize that you can come up with your own apps function. So let me call it apps underscore value, right? Absolute value. If you pass a comma b to it, it should return a minus b if a is greater than 0, or it should return b minus a if b is greater than, sorry, if a, it should return a minus b if a is bigger than b. If not, it should return b minus a. Okay, so as simple as that. So if a is greater than or equal to b, then return a minus b. Okay, if a is less than b, then you have to return b minus a. Okay, this does the same job. So why is this useful? This is useful if you forget the built-in function for whatever reason. So now I can call apps underscore value, and let's see if this works. Okay, another hint is you can directly submit. That will also run the. Okay, so I have made a mistake. Let's go back. So positional argument b is missing. So yeah, so I made a mistake here, which is I passed p minus q. I should pass p comma q. In fact, I'm sorry. So I'll just delete the whole apps value. So I may I it should be apps difference. That is what I have written here. This should actually be the absolute value of the difference. So I can just call p comma q here. Okay, I'll so this is not absolute value. What the function that I've written is absolute underscore difference. That is, it is the difference of a minus b, but then the positive difference, right? So that is what I've written. So let me call this apps diff. Okay, we run this. So this should pass all 5 test cases. Okay, so please note the mistake that I had done. So this should be absolute difference. If it was absolute value, how will it be? So absolute value is if a greater than or equal to b, return. So this will not take two arguments, this will take only one argument, right? So this will take only one argument. If a greater than or equal to 0, it will return a, else it will return minus a, right? That's how this works. So this now I can call absolute value of p minus q. So notice that this will also work. So let's go ahead and run it. Okay, so that is the solution to the first mock.